Lucius Aurelius Commodus, one of Rome's most infamous emperors who ruled from 180 to 192 AD. His 12-year reign was a wild departure from the golden age of the Antonine dynasty, marked by gladiatorial obsession, political neglect, and a brutal end. So, let's unpack the story of Commodus, how he rose, what made him tick, and why his death sent shockwaves through the Roman Empire. Commodus was born on August 31, 161 AD in Lanuvium, about 20 miles from Rome. He was the son of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor whose meditations on Stoicism are still read today, and Faustina the Younger, a woman tied to Rome's elite. Unlike most emperors, Commodus wasn't adopted into power, he was born into it, the first born in the Purple Emperor since Titus. He had a twin brother who died young, leaving Commodus as the clear heir. From the start, expectations were sky high. Marcus Aurelius was a hands-on father, ensuring Commodus was educated by top tutors in philosophy, rhetoric, and law. But even as a kid, Commodus leaned toward physical pursuits, hunting, athletics, and later the thrill of combat. At age 15, he was made Caesar, the designated heir, and joined his father on campaign along the Danube, where Rome was battling Germanic tribes. By 177, at just 16, he was named co-emperor, ruling alongside Marcus. This was rare. Marcus wanted to secure his son's succession, knowing his own health was failing. When Marcus died in 180, likely from illness, Commodus became sole emperor at 19. Rome held its breath. Marcus had been a stabilizing force, guiding the empire through war and plague. But Commodus? He was untested, young, and already showing signs of disinterest in the gritty work of governing an empire stretching from Britain to Egypt. Early on, Commodus seemed promising. He ended the costly Marcomannic wars his father had fought, negotiating peace with the Germanic tribes. It was practical. Rome's coffers were strained, but it ruffled feathers among generals who wanted total victory. Commodus, though, was eager to return to Rome, not slog through frontier campaigns. Back in the capital, he leaned heavily on advisors, a move that defined his reign. One of his first key allies was Satyrus, his chamberlain who wielded outsized influence. Senators grumbled as Commodus delegated serious decisions to a freedman. The Senate, already sidelined under Marcus, felt further ignored. Commodus preferred the roar of the crowd to the droning of policy debates. His true passion was the arena. Now let's talk about the Colosseum, because this is where Commodus comes alive, or spirals, depending on your view. He was obsessed with gladiatorial combat, not just as a spectator but as a participant. Commodus didn't invent gladiator games, but he took them to a new level, styling himself as Hercules reborn. He'd stride into the arena, lion skin draped over his shoulders, club in hand, and face off against opponents. Historians like Cassius Dio claim he fought over 700 times. But here's the catch: those fights were rigged. His opponents were often wounded soldiers, condemned criminals, or exotic animals, all set up to lose. Commodus wasn't risking his life. He was staging a spectacle. This wasn't just a hobby, it was a statement. By fighting as a gladiator, a role Romans saw as low class, he thumbed his nose at the elite. He even charged the imperial treasury 1,000,000 sesterces per appearance, draining funds meant for public works or the army. The crowds ate it up, but the Senate seethed. To them, an emperor in the arena was degrading Rome itself. Commodus took his self-mythology further. Around 190, he started calling himself the Roman Hercules and demanded worship as a living god. He renamed the months of the year after his titles, Lucius, Aelius, Aurelius, and so on. Most audaciously, he tried to rename Rome itself Colonia Commodiana, or Commodus's colony, as if he'd founded it. Imagine the backlash if a leader today tried renaming a country after themselves. For Romans, this was hubris on steroids. While Commodus played God, the empire suffered. He left administration to a revolving door of favorites. After Soterus was killed in a plot, Commodus turned to Tigidius Perennis, head of the Praetorian Guard. Perennis ran the show until soldiers, fed up with his heavy hand, had him executed in 185. Next came Cleander, another freedman who sold political offices to the highest bidder, sparking riots in Rome when grain supplies ran low. By 190, Cleander was dead too, torn apart by a mob. Commodus barely seemed to notice, distracted by his own world of games and glory. His neglect fueled unrest. In 182, just 2 years into his reign, a major conspiracy shook the palace. His older sister Lucilla, a former empress widowed by Marcus's co-ruler Lucius Verus, plotted to kill him. She resented Commodus's rule and feared his instability. The assassin, a senator's nephew, botched the job, shouting his intent before striking. Commodus survived, but Lucilla didn't. She was exiled and executed, along with her co-conspirators. The episode left Commodus paranoid, and purges followed, thinning the ranks of Rome's elite. Economically, things weren't much better. The empire was stretched thin from Marcus's wars and the Antonine Plague, which had killed millions. Commodus debased the currency, mixing less silver into coins to stretch funds, a move that sparked inflation. His arena stunts and lavish festivals burned through cash, while corruption under his advisors bled the treasury further. Rome's infrastructure, roads, aqueducts, border forts started to creak. By the early 190s, Commodus's grip on reality seemed to slip. He'd parade through Rome in his Hercules get-up, alienating even his supporters. The Praetorian Guard, once loyal, grew restless. His inner circle, courtiers, mistresses, trainers, began to see him as a liability. The tipping point came in late 192. On December 31st, 192, Commodus's downfall unfolded fast. He'd planned a grand spectacle for New Year's Day, intending to emerge from the gladiator barracks as consul, Rome's highest office, in a provocative snub to tradition. But his closest allies had other plans. His concubine Marcia, his athletic trainer Narcissus, and the new Praetorian prefect Letus formed a desperate plot. They feared Commodus's antics would drag them down with him, or that he'd turn on them next. That night, Marcia slipped poison into Commodus's wine. When he vomited it up, still alive, Narcissus stepped in. In the emperor's bath, the wrestler strangled Commodus until he stopped breathing. He was 31 years old. The Senate wasted no time. They declared him a public enemy, erased his name from monuments, and tried to wipe him from history. Rome's new emperor, Pertinax, stepped into a fractured empire. Commodus's death didn't just end a reign, it ended an era. The Antonine dynasty, which had given Rome Trajan, Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius, was gone. What followed was the Year of the Five Emperors, a chaotic scramble for power that exposed Rome's fragility. Historians like Dio and Herodian paint Commodus as a turning point, the moment Rome's golden age began to crack. So what drove him? Was he a spoiled kid overwhelmed by power, a narcissist chasing fame, or just misunderstood? Commodus wasn't mad like Nero or Caligula, who burned Rome or declared war on the sea. He was functional enough to survive 12 years, no small feat in a snake pit like Rome. Some argue he was a populist, playing to the masses who loved his arena stunts, while others see him as a victim of circumstance, raised in a bubble with no real preparation for the throne. The truth likely lies in between. Commodus craved adoration, whether from the Colosseum's crowds or history itself, but his obsession with spectacle over substance left Rome weaker, its institutions shakier. His story, preserved in texts like the Historia Augusta and Dio's Roman History, reminds us how one leader's choices can ripple across an empire. That's the tale of Commodus, emperor, gladiator, would-be god, and a man who fell from Rome's heights to its shadows. If you want more stories of Rome's wildest rulers or the empire's rise and fall, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.